Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's 1 million by 1 million strategy roundtable for entrepreneurs. 1M1M, as you know, is the first and only global virtual accelerator for technology startups. And we have an inclusive mission for startup incubation and acceleration. We want to support not only the venture scale or venture worthy companies, but also companies that would not be necessarily venture fundable, but can still build as bootstrapped businesses. This is our 690th session. Pre-mentoring roundtables have been going on within the program since 2008. And at this point, entrepreneurs from every corner of the world have been part of these roundtables. When we started already, not only all over the US, but we had a very big adoption already in India, because India was hitting that point of taking off as a startup nation. But then over the years, Africa has really kicked in gear, which has been noticeable. It's really interesting, you know, when a whole geography kicks in gear, it's really interesting to see the momentum and the development in the maturity of the entrepreneurs. We're going to start today's session with a conversation with Felix Hartmann, managing partner at Hartmann Capital. Felix, welcome back to the show. Could you unmute?
Thank you so much for having me. So glad to be here this morning.
So Felix, let's start with a little bit of an introduction about Hartmann Capital and yourself, and then we will dive into investment thesis mostly.
Wonderful. So for mini background, I started my firm back in 2018. Back then we started with an initial fund, which was actually in the hedge fund space. So I launched one of the first crypto asset hedge funds. Started very humbly, very small, $217,000, one-man show, and then grew it over the next 6 years to about 50 million in assets. And, you know, it was through the digital asset world that there was this thesis of the metaverse that became very popular in 2020, 2021. Nowadays, it's a very hated term. But the idea of the metaverse, you know, rang very true to me outside of what Web3 represented. So you have platforms like Roblox, you have platforms like Fortnite, Minecraft, that have hundreds of millions of users a day. And at the same time, you had virtual reality start taking off as a new format where Facebook rebranded to Meta and essentially bet the entire ship on it. Yep. And so that's when we got into venture capital and launched our first venture fund that focused on that particular vertical. And the deeper we dug into, the more we realized also that you know, AI was going to do a lot of the heavy lifting in bringing those worlds to life. Whether that is through, like, you know, AI-powered NPCs, whether that's also through helping turn individual creators into powerhouses that can have the same kind of output that, you know, a major AAA studio could have, right? As we're seeing more and more tools come out that enable that. I guess now I'm jumping ahead because I was about to say, like, you know, now we're on Fund 2, and with Fund 2, essentially we've got two core theses. And as it pertains to AI, it's two different fields, because we've been so deep in the spatial computing space with virtual reality that all of a sudden augmented reality, smart glasses became a little bit more center focus. And something that popped out really quickly was that there's a huge divide between virtual reality might be gaming, but smart glasses are really more about human enhancement. And so this is how we got into thesis number one, which is the intersection of essentially human AI integration. Everybody already uses ChatGPT and, you know, Grok, Anthropic, and so forth in the day-to-day on desktop, on computer. But the question is, how do we bring AI with us 24/7 when we leave the house? How do we use AI to enrich our experiences when we're out on the street, in stores, and so forth? And to us, that's where new form factors come in. You know, whether that is smart glasses, brain-computer interfaces, or others we haven't even thought of yet, that might enable us to really integrate AI into our day-to-day life while also making us smarter, better, faster, and so forth. The second piece to the thesis is life after work, because ultimately AI is going to do more and more of our work for us. We're probably going to work, it's not that we're going to all lose our jobs, we're going to work less, fewer hours, probably going to have more buying power because AI is also deflationary. Interesting stat that since the 1920s, we used to work about 3,500 hours a year. It's down to 1,500 hours a year. we used to spend about 14% of our annual income on non-necessities. That's up to 50%. And so the core thesis here is what happened life after work? Where do we find meaning, connection, challenge? And to us, that's the space of entertainment, gaming, and that's also where the blue ocean of virtual reality gaming comes in. And there too, of course, AI plays a huge role, and you've probably seen this on social media, whether that's the VO3 announcement, where a lot of people made these really incredible videos generated by nothing but a text prompt.
So you've already laid out your investment thesis. So just a couple of quick things. Well, how big is Fund 2 right now?
50 million. So we're currently in the process of raising 50 million. We've already closed on the first 10. We've already got the first 7 companies in the cohort. So the goal is to back 40 companies in the pre-seed to seed stage.
So talk about the check sizes, pre-seed to seed. What size checks are you writing?
So Fund 1 was very much a deal-by-deal decision-making process. And in hindsight, we didn't love that, because I found that a lot of times you get the most amount of data on a company, not before, not as, but after you invest. And so what we've decided with Fund 2 is that we're doing standardized checks, almost the way I'm used to it from the hedge fund world, where it's the exact same risk on every investment, 300K standard check size on an entry, with then holding 1 to 2 million as a follow-up investment for the top 20% of the companies we back. So it might be that we back 40 companies with 300K each, and then 8 of those, the top 8 that after we get to know them, after we work with them, after we see how they deal with challenges, can they pivot effectively when need to, how do they communicate with investors after the courting process is over, right? All these things matter, and at that point, we'll follow on. I probably wouldn't lean as heavily on follow-on if the environment was hotter, but given that the market is still rather in a lull when it comes to the funding environment, I believe that we have the ability to essentially take our time and re-up without having to overpay for it the second time.
And what is the geographical focus of the companies that you want to invest in? We are,
so far, we're focused on the US and Europe. I'm happy to expand that as we get the right analyst talent that is local to the region. I wouldn't invest, let's say, in LATAM unless I have somebody on the ground in LATAM. I wouldn't invest in, as you mentioned, India. India is a really fast-growing space unless I had somebody boots on the ground in India that can meet those entrepreneurs and diligence them. So far, we are US-based, Europe-based, where also a lot of the growth is happening in gaming and AI.
Mm-hmm. So let's discuss some of the investments you have made that are looking really interesting and finding product market fit and repeatability and so forth, which are the cornerstone elements of a venture scale company.
Gotcha. Okay, so if we're looking at companies that are more down the road, that have had major product market fit, a couple come to mind. One is DressX. So DressX is the #1 digital fashion marketplace brand technology company in the world right now. They fit into squarely with this life after work thesis, the metaverse, so to say, where kids right now are spending billions of dollars a year on in-game wearables, meaning they care. While we used to care what we wear to school, whether it's the shoes, the backpack, and so forth, kids nowadays spend a lot of time on what do they wear when they go to virtual spaces like Roblox, Fortnite, and so forth. DressX essentially is the leader in that. So they are on Roblox, they're on Snapchat, on Meta, on all the platforms. They're the main vendor essentially. Mm-hmm. And they have a gap between traditional brands, whether that is a Hugo Boss, an Adidas, a Prada, Dior, all the famous brands have worked with them to bring their traditional fashion to its digital space. Mm-hmm. Now, what's interesting is, so one, they fit scale. If you go to any of those platforms, you can find them. They also, in terms of volume, they do more than anybody else. So they are, in the process of raising a Series B, or they're going to be raising a Series B later this year. So they've made quite a lot of revenue. But beyond that, they're also, again, tapping into AI, where something that's really important is, it's not just about making an AI wrapper, but rather you need to own the distribution. And so DressX already owns the distribution, whether that is with fashion designers, whether that is with consumers. And so now they were able to also create like whether that's AI dressing tools where you can buy a digital outfit and see how it would look on you. You could with one click essentially put it on. You have a photo of yourself, and you can change the outfit, post it on Instagram, right? So all of a sudden, this can also become interesting for influencers that used to do hundreds of shoots essentially all the time. Now they do one shoot, and they can essentially take the brand's clothing and just overlay it on them. And then you take it a step further with creativity. Now, any young person, for example, without having access to production and so forth, can start inventing and designing new outfits. And then if they succeed, they might just get discovered, and they might go into real fashion, or they don't need to. So that's something that's very like niche, and I love that, where you're not just going after the 20,000th Uber off, right, or the Netflix off, or the cursor off, as it is popular today, but it's that you find something that solves a real market demand that's present today, and that's only growing triple digits a year, which is like digital consumption. And you then also go after it with unique new technologies. So like they have these AI integrations, but they also have, for example, like NFTs, as unpopular as they might seem to be, right? Like you can have digital ownership over the items that you produce. So that's a unique example.
So Felix, I want to double click down on something in what you described, this interesting, very interesting business. So when kids go to the digital world and they're looking for outfits to go in, are these outfits that look like avatars, or these are human beings looking like human beings with clothes that fit human beings? What are we talking about?
Yeah. So ironically, platforms like Roblox and Fortnite predominantly use the human form factor. So they look like humans, even maybe in like much lower graphics than Roblox in particular. What's interesting is that I thought this too, that in the virtual world, people would buy all these crazy, unique fantasy outfits. That's not necessarily the case. The best selling item for DressX actually is a T-shirt with the word DressX on the front. So it's almost like the supreme of the digital world, right? Where it's a T-shirt, right? But that makes sense because even when you have like, so for example, like we spend a lot of time in virtual reality, and Meta has their own avatars. And once I create mine, I'm like, well, I do want to look like I would look, right? Like you almost try to recreate yourself. You want to recreate your style, but in the digital world. And so every platform has free items, but of course, then maybe find something premium. And the nice thing is these are microtransactions, right? Like it might be 49 cents, it might be $1, maybe it's $2, right? But it's something very small where they don't think about it too much, or they might they might keep their wardrobe up to date because one, it doesn't take up space, and then even better for the producer, the margins are massive, right? I mean, you have to first invent it, and then you have to pay maybe a store royalty, right? Meaning Meta will get something, Roblox will get something, but everything else, essentially, especially for first-party designs, meaning they created that in-house, it's a 100% take rate, right? Or after store fees, it's a 70% take rate. That's
so. But when you talk about Adidas or Nike, or I don't know if you have the fashion designers also going on there. What is their workflow, and how do they be there? Is it more an advertising opportunity and introducing people to the brands? And
no, so I mean, obviously, so once something is a third party design, right? The creator, of course, themselves also gets royalties, right? So they themselves get paid as well. So one, it is a revenue generating opportunity for them. But also, of course, yes, it can naturally be a branding opportunity where I knew some fashion designers, they, to use informal language, like they popped off, they became famous in 2021 when the NFT hype was happening, because there was a lot of eyeballs, a lot of attention towards that space. And so they leveraged creating digital fashion to stand out from the crowd, and then, got traditional contracts as well. But ultimately, I think it's a large piece of it is just brand building, right? I think the same way brands nowadays, and that's whether that is a Coca-Cola, which by the way partnered with DressX at one point, they distributed lots of bottles with a QR code where you got a digital wearable, right? All the way to personalities of the like Generation Alpha, Generation Z crowd, like Mr. Beast, right? Like they are incentivized to keep their branding essentially going 24/7 with omnipresence. So like they would benefit from like releasing their own drops, their own items, and so forth in these virtual worlds. But of course, all this, that's a single portfolio company, so it's not that we focus on digital fashion, but to us, we did a lot of digging to find like who is the category champion in this, and to us that was Stress X, and so we've just been building on with them since 2022 now. And for what's worth, to share some numbers, back in 2022 when we first backed them, I think they sold about 200,000 items. 2023, it was over 2.1 million items. Last year, 2024, it was over 78 million items.
Wow.
And so, there's real traction. There's, real users. And I think if anything, it is more and more a generational moment now as well. You just look at, for example, Roblox stock, right? Roblox has been growing quite a bit, where I believe one of the most recent quarterly earnings numbers, it was about 350 million users. And I don't want to be quoted wrong. So it's either daily active, monthly active. That's important differentiation, but still a lot. Either way, that's more people than live in the United States of America. So that's, just for the scope of things.
It's huge, yeah. You have a question from the audience. Phani is asking, Felix, does it allow people like me to design an apparel and publish? If someone buys it, then I get a share of the revenue. That's the model, yeah?
Yes, so you can do that. And
so
I
have a different question, but we're going to go on to your next case study in just a moment, just because it's so interesting what you described. I've done, I did one of the first online fashion companies. It was real fashion. It was regular fashion in 1999. So the question that is swirling in my mind is, you have so many users and so much activity. It must be segmented though, right? Is it the fashionistas who are on there, or is it more the geeks on there who like t-shirts and fashion? This is not the place for fashionistas.
No, I think the high volume just comes from kids, honestly. So what I think is that it's really the broad Generation Alpha, Generation Z crowd. And when I say Generation Z, I actually mean the young Generation Z, because it is 2025 now, and some Gen Zs are actually in their 20s. So they're not as young as they sound anymore. So I think that, like, a lot of the volume, for example, let's say it comes from Snapchat, and so we might be talking about a 16, Snapchat might be more like a 16, 18, 21-year-old, like, that pays $2 to dress their avatar because they use the avatars in their emojis, right? It's like, not like when you reply to something, you put this little sticker on top that has your avatar. And so if let's say if it's me and I see that there's a cool looking leather jacket that it costs $2. I mean, like $2, you spent it on, like, a coffee nowadays costs, $6, $5 in Miami, LA, you name it. So I'm like, who cares? And then you double click Apple Pay, it's done, right? So, like, even I might be the target audience, right? But then, somebody younger, like on Roblox, this is anecdotal, but even one of my LPs, so we had an LP dinner, so limited partners that invest in venture funds, and then I invest their money into startups, told us that their kids were spending $200 a weekend on Roblox. So it's a lot of money. First, you gotta have that money, but also, like, there's their audiences, and they said, like, their kids would meet up with other kids, like the same way we got. They would sit in a circle on their phones and play Roblox. So, like, that is the digital square. And so for some it might be they spend $2, for other people it might be $200, but look, it's very variable and elastic, right? And interesting enough, a lot of the content is free. And this is something now, just to even, like, as a very smooth transition, we've backed a lot of game studios, and what most of the game studios realized is that they are better off going free to play instead of having a premium title. So in the past, you charge $20 to get my game. Now they say anybody gets to play the game for free. We want as many eyeballs, as many users as possible, and then all the monetization happens on the back end, whether that is cosmetics, subscriptions, consumables, right? Like, always
in-app purchases.
In-app, yeah. And not even play to win, not even like, where it's like, I have to pay money so that I can feel good and win. No, it's just like, if you love the ecosystem, like, you want to be visible within it, right? Maybe you get access, like, again, your avatar looks different because you spend so much time and you care about it, right? Or you can earn extra points for progression. So things like that.
So what, tell me more about what you're seeing in terms of AI in your world. So whatever, if you, even if it's earlier stage investments, what kind of things have you invested in, and what are the trends?
So one I'm extremely excited about spending more and more time on is, again, this vertical of human AI integration, right? How do we bring AI into our day-to-day lives? And the two areas that I think are most ready for or interesting in for the next 5 years is one, smart glasses, and two, brain-computer interfaces. So I was about to show it, but it's my case is empty. Right there. So in March, we backed a company called Mentra, and so they built an operating system for smart glasses. And so when you hear smart glasses, I'm not talking about the big VR headsets. I'm talking about glasses that are this small. All the computing is right here in the back. These things weigh less than 40 grams on your nose, which is essentially the scientific number that you need to hit. You need to be less than 30 grams on the nose, less than 40 grams on the whole head, so that people don't notice it, that they don't feel it, that they don't get tired. You need to have battery life of about 24 hours a day. Why is this relevant? To make AI useful, AI should be able to see what you see. It should be able to hear what you hear. It should be able to enhance and annotate the world around you and show you things. And it should be able to talk to you. And so what is the best form factor to be able to and give AI all these senses, right? And sure, people might say the jury's still out on it, and they will go out and try things out. They'll try like AirPods with the camera, but then if you have long hair, the hair covers it, doesn't work. People try pendants, but the pendant, anybody's ever worn a necklace knows, like, they flip around, right? So like, unless it's a 360 camera, that's tricky, right? So essentially, if you run this experiment fast enough, you realize, okay, glasses actually make a lot of sense, right? Why? Because it's literally eye field of view. So if you move your head, the camera moves with you without you doing anything, and you're hands-free. And so, again, we're not into the hardware, but instead we're into the software. So we backed the operating system, and so there's a lot of interesting things that are already possible now. So for example, I was in Japan 2 weeks ago. There's an app that does live translation. So I'm wearing the glasses, I'm hearing Japanese, it auto translates to me on the screen, right? Again, the software is the less exciting part, because you can do that with ChatGPT today, but it does it time and in the person and anywhere I'm going around. And then you can go to more exciting. Like, for example, there's an app that listens to your conversations, and then based on what you're talking about, it tries to enhance your knowledge and intelligence, more or less, in areas of things you might be able to benefit. So for example, maybe you name drop somebody and it assumes I don't know that. So it gives me a really quick definition of who's that person. Or, we talk about, the economy of India, and it gives me some stats really quickly about, whether that is the GDP or, how many billions in investments happen in the AI space and so forth, right? So the idea is AI is capable of so much. How to integrate that day to day and really unleash ourselves to raise our IQ. So that's an example where, of course, this is earlier stage, meaning they have several hundred of developers. They're not focusing on making revenue yet, because the real goal here is like, how do you capture mindshare, right? How do you capture as many developers as possible to build on your operating system? Because if you have 1,000, 5,000 killer apps on this device, then you win, right? So that's another example of, like, how we bring AI into the day to day.
I read something interesting as you're talking about this glass and the sort of an augmentation, of your experience. The guy who's, I forget his name, the guy who's the CEO of Scale AI, which Meta has just invested a huge amount. Alex, he's invested a lot. Meta has invested a lot of money in that company. And he's 27 years old, and he's made the statement that he wants to delay
having kids,
because he wants to wait for augmentation to become possible. He doesn't want to disadvantage his kids by having them now while we are preparing for augmentation. How do you feel about that, since you're working on brain-computer
interface?
extension?
Yeah. Listen, a first caveat by saying I think a lot of people jump to conclusions against him out of romanticism of the past. I'm personally also like in the embryo freezing process right now. So like, we're freezing because I'm 30. I'm not quite ready to have children yet because I think there's a lot more work that I want to do before I bring children in this world. And so, I don't know whether I'll wait as long as he will until that technology is ready. But I do think technology is only getting better. When it comes to the choice of whether or not to have invasive BCIs, I think the world will ultimately bifurcate between those that have it and those that don't. And I think those that don't will be
disadvantaged,
massively disadvantaged, right? Because think about like, let's just say we've already seen that there's been tests that foundational models are able to pass every single test, like LSAT, medical exams, and so forth, like without a problem at this stage already. And AI is only getting better. I think it's the same thing as like, do you choose to upgrade to 170 IQ, or do you choose to continue to be, your simple self, right? And it will get to the point that even somebody that might have been more median IQ with the technological implementation will outshine somebody that was 10 points higher than them, right? Mm-hmm. And then, of course, again, you can get very romantic, like, what's this all lead to? This is just it is an infinite chase, and some of that can be true, but also it is my belief that if we as a species in general were to raise our collective IQ, we would likely have less wars. We would likely have less resource depletion. We would likely solve a lot of the bigger issues, right? Does it make us less of ourselves? I don't think so. I don't think reading a book makes you less of yourself either, right? Now, I think, if anything, having a much tighter integration of AI in our personality, what makes it ourselves, will, if anything, be better, because I see the worst happening without it. So the worst that's happening, if you just look at the trends today, what people are doing, if you're getting any kind of service emails today, they probably all look AI generated. Why? Because there's actual humans. Nobody's holding their hands behind their back, right? Nobody's holding guns to their head, and nobody's implanted a chip in the head, but they already sound like AI. Why? Because much of the Western population has now defaulted to being very lazy, where they write out an idea, they copy and paste it, say, ChatGPT, make this sound better, plug it back in. We've all become bots in a way, where I think if you play this scenario out over another 3 years, most people will be incapable of forming
of writing. Yes.
Most people will be incapable of forming, having proper critical thought. Why? Because in the past, you need to think a problem through. Now you're just asking ChatGPT, what do you think about this? What's the solution, right? So ironically, even those that choose not to, I think their own capabilities will be continuously declining unless they keep challenging themselves. So
here I'm gonna, since I asked you this question, I'm gonna, for the audience, I'm gonna give you a pointer. Actually, quite a number of years ago, before the pandemic, I wrote a series. It's all available on my blog for you to read, called Man and Superman: Human History Bifurcates, which addresses exactly this. People who do not choose to augment are going to be at a disadvantage. That was my thesis as well. And now we are seeing more real manifestations of that. The part that excites me also very much is, disease, right? It's not just augmentation, it's also gene editing. And any kind of gene editing enabled removal of possibilities of diseases that are handed down to you by your genes. That's a massive, massive opportunity, and unambiguously benevolent stream 100%. Of thought. But
and I think that's where a lot of the the real startups will start migrating as we raise our capabilities, right? As we become smarter, we can do more with less. Look, like I think there was going to be a diminishing game here where people try to bet on apps because we can now make apps with a single person and we can build them in 3 weeks instead of 2 years. Fantastic, but that's a zero-sum game where essentially the whole those kind of app layers will collapse, where because again the ease of making them becomes too low, and to become free essentially. Like there's no need to charge them because like you might even just ask your agent. Like a lot of these things are things now that you can just ask your agent, like, hey, I'm going to Japan, make me travel itinerary. This used to be an app, right? Like a travel app. So where does the brains go? If the brains collectively get smarter and are more capable, well, they start tackling bigger problems, And so to your point, I think longevity and biotech and all that is going to be a big focus, and you already see the movements, right? Whether it's a Brian Johnson, don't die, whether you love him or hate him. I think that is kind of the canary in the coal mine that as foreign as it used to sound, like tackling death, I think will be one of the next big
tackling death is one thing, but just there's so many people living with such debilitating diseases, and if you can just eliminate that, there are whole classes of problems that can be taken out, which would enormously enhance quality of life, right?
100%. Well, I say tackling death as like the final goalpost, and in order to get there, you need to solve all these thousands of individual diseases, right? So I just think like if you were to draw a graph, right, over the next 100 years, it will look like we're trying to tackle death, but in reality, we will need to solve for all kinds of individual cancers, right? We need to solve for metabolic syndrome. We will need to solve for heart failures and so forth.
Yeah. So I think about biotech and AI-enabled drug discovery, genetic engineering, all of these things are very, very promising areas. The one completely negative possibility, which also we need to be aware of, is brainwashing. The minute you open your brain up to this level of manipulation, you are opening yourself up to this level of brainwashing as well. And that's the part that worries me about this technology. But every technology 100%. Has positive potential and bad potential.
100%. I think so. The good news and bad news, whatever angle you look at it from, is these things will probably take a lot longer than it currently feels like. Yes, we're going at hyper speed. Everything feels like amazing, right? But the reality is, we're probably still 5+ years away from anything material in the invasive side, because I see the timelines even when it comes to things like smart glasses, right? Some of the leading startups, they're going to their first productions. They might be selling 10,000 units this year or next year. That puts us in 2026 already, right? Like then if they succeed, they're going to raise more money and they might do a bigger run with like 100,000 units, right? Like it's going to take until like 2030 for there to be millions and millions and millions of units. And then that's just smart glass. If we go towards something like BCIs, some of these BCI startups, they're hoping to launch commercially in like 2028, right? It takes time to do these things, and even then,
there's regulation involved. This is not something that can happen without regulation.
Correct. So and then that can go in two directions. Either the regulation needs to come first, or the regulation lags, meaning these things launch first, and then usually regulators, they take years to figure things out. Prime example, the crypto space, where crypto was a big subject already in 2017. That was a big ICO mania. It wasn't until this week, essentially, that the Senate passed a stablecoin bill. It is 8 years after stablecoin mania that the first proper crypto bill was passed in the Senate. 8 years.
Yeah, but crypto is a financial innovation. Yep. Finance is very, very complicated. It doesn't have the same level of regulatory framework that is easy to adopt, but FDA
I would argue
is
the
in
same
place.
thing for medical. No, I mean, when it's about our lives, I'm sure we see there's like peptides and stem cells, even today, the FDA goes back and forth on banning peptides because there's lack of clarity about, how safe are they? Do we need them? And I think there's a non-zero chance. I would say there's a very large chance that all this human enhancement will, again, the bifurcation will also be political, where you can guess which one, like one party will be pro, one party will be against, and the party will be against will probably be the one that represents the demographic that can't afford it, right? Because like ultimately there will be price tags associated with it. So I don't think everybody will be able to afford the best longevity treatments, and whether it's human enhancements and brain chips and so forth, and so then it becomes a debate of like, well, should that even exist? Because it's not fair, right? Like it only makes the rich poor gap even bigger and bigger and bigger. So it will be politicized on that level too. But I think ultimately you build and back the founders, the products that are creating a net benefit for society, and they're creating net efficiencies. And I think that always wins the long term. Like there will be hiccups along the road, but I think both efficiency and the good usually win over long enough time horizon.
On that note, Felix, thank you for participating. Great to have you here. Are you staying for the presentation? We have
Sure,
one.
I'll stick around.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We're going to switch now to the entrepreneur pitch session. We have one scheduled pitch and then some conversations. This is a safe working session, folks. This is not an entertainment show like Shark Tank. This is a serious working forum. You can discuss anything you want to discuss that is material to your business and where you're facing roadblocks, and we'll try to, discuss solutions. So, Phani, please unmute your line if you'd like to turn on your video. Perfect. And let's get going.
All right. Thank you so much, Shramana, and thanks, Felix, for such an exciting conversation. The moment I see this screen, right? So it kind of making me feel, and after this conversation between you and Felix is like, are people really going to walk out and then play out in the street? Because we spoke so much about augmented reality and people playing roadblocks, sitting next to each other on their devices. But my pitch is about the real world sport in the physical world.
I sincerely hope that real world sports is very much a part of the future that we are building, because this zombie couch potatoes is not the right model for a good futuristic world. Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, absolutely, and I can see. I mean, you look very fit. Felix look very fit. So obviously, you both spend a lot of time outside, and then it all comes. Sport is part of that game. Building a healthy mind is what you get with the sport. So I am Phani, and I am based out of Hyderabad in India right now. And I've been a technologist all my life, like 25 years of career, and been a sport enthusiast from childhood. So I'm trying to bring and see how technology can help improve the lives of sports enthusiasts on the ground, and starting with coaches, but not limited to the coach. The idea is to create an AI-driven sports social network of all sports enthusiasts across the world, including the fans and the
So
social sector.
what is your primary value proposition? Are you trying to augment the coaches, or are you trying to build a social network? What is your real business here?
Okay, so the real business, it's for today's conversation, it's primarily coach and help coaches with AI tools which can improve their efficiency and then bring in profitability to them. So currently increase their earning capacity and also leverage their skills so they can coach
So
more.
what kind of augmentation are we talking about? Are we talking about AI-driven augmentation of actual coaching, or are we talking about administration, coaching and administration and coaching businesses?
In this current okay, I have both in the roadmap, but initially for the administration aspect of it.
Okay.
And eventually when the computer vision materializes and then becomes more reliable, also bring in the actual coaching augmentation as well.
So at the
currently we tried,
moment,
mm,
we're talking about administration of coaching businesses.
administration of the coaching businesses is where we are starting.
And what is the competitive landscape for this?
The competitive landscape, so like for example, Team Snap is the biggest competitor in US market. And similarly, there are many other small startups in Europe, Asia, uh, who are having similar solutions. But what they all provide a coaching automation, team management from as a task-oriented solutions. What we are differently pitching is this is more about empathy-based solution, which is trying to help coach to make a better living out of their own lives. And if you just go back to the previous slide, the problems that I stated out there is based when I interacted with coaches in India, Qatar, Singapore, Australia. So this is based on the real on the ground talking to hundreds of coaches where they are losing those numbers slightly changed now. Like they lose about 5 to 8% of their revenue on an annual basis, which, for example, if someone is making 100K per annum, so they're losing almost $8,000, which is a big amount for a coach, right? So, and they are spending too much time, like they are compromising on their work, family life and other lives because there is more demand in the off-peak hours, which is normally the family time, and then they spend a lot of time trying to juggling with Excel sheets and documents. And the performance tracking is the administration aspect that you talked about, where the athlete whom they are coaching, they have no clear evidence of what is lacking and what would get them to the next level.
Right. So,
What they,
what I like about these vertical solutions is that they are, they're precise, they're very workflow oriented, and it has vertical nuances, and we have very good case studies in 1M of companies that have succeeded enormously by doing these kinds of vertical solutions. There's a company, WebPT, that did superb execution in the physiotherapy space. So I completely understand that the value of something like this, because we are in 2025, your primary issue is going to be what is the competition, and can you are you going into a market that has a lot of solutions and you're going to be lost in the noise, or is there actually gap and room for you to build a business? So all these things that you're talking about, progress tracking and session planning and administrative, financial management, collections, etc., all this is great.
Yeah,
but
right. So the biggest differentiator is the discoverability. So currently there is no solution out there which is giving a coaches a platform where athletes can find a good coach. So discoverability of the coaches is a very big gap.
And how do you solve that?
Yep. So our solution is, so this is where it's driving towards the sports social network that I talked about.
But that's a very expensive thing to build.
I understand. So to back it up, I want to share what I have did in the last 8 years. So I've been building free sports tech out for the world. I already built a tournament management, which is used in 100 plus countries currently. It's has over 3,000 tournaments conducted on the platform. Hundreds of thousands of participants were already there, all free. And similarly, the coach I also did an assessment platform, which is currently used, again, free of charge. So that has given me confidence that this can actually work and scale, and then there is a demand where people are coming and using it, right? So the what my previous experience over 8 years has proven is the discoverability can only be provided through a free mechanism. And that is the reason why Facebook has been successful, LinkedIn has been successful, because the onboarding is free. Your basic tools and solutions are free to use. So the moment you provide an real value solution to the sports fraternity and make it free, then you get the user onboarded on there, and that will increase the discoverability, which is opening up n number of revenue opportunities. Like
So
I
in
tried
the apps that you have out there that are free apps, how many users do you have in those?
30,000 users today.
30,000. I
Yeah,
see.
right.
Okay.
So, so coming back to the coach one, right? So this one I started just a couple of months ago, 5 months ago, and I did the basic study. And this is the first time I'm trying out to pitch and see if I can raise funds, because I see a lot of value uh, in fast tracking this one, and then it can actually help the coaches on the ground.
You cannot raise money on a concept. That doesn't happen. Concept financing does not happen. You have to start building a business, get it to a point where people can see the potential, validated potential. People want to fund businesses, they don't want to fund concepts.
Yeah, so I already built the beta, and currently the beta is out there with 10 customers or coaches trying out in different parts of the world, and getting awesome feedback as of last week. And that's when I thought, I will come and share it with you. So
Are they
it's not an
paying?
idea at the moment.
Are they
Yeah,
paying?
they'll start paying next month.
Okay,
So they're
that's
currently
great.
there in the beta
That's
phase.
great.
They are in the,
That's great.
yeah, right.
So the next question you're going to get when investors look at this is not an investor pitch, by the way. We have to turn, if you want to go out to raise money, and we can help you do that, but you're going to have to turn this into an investor pitch. This is not an investor pitch. One of the questions that's missing here is what we call bottom-up TAM analysis. Do you know what that means, and have you done that analysis?
I did a basic TAM, like if you go a couple of slides later, I would, yeah, here. So
That's not a bottom-up TAM analysis. That's a pie in the sky, top-down TAM that is absolutely irrelevant for our discussion.
right. I'm not aware of what's the bottom-up TAM.
Yeah, so you have to learn all these things and turn this into. I think it's great that you have a beta product out in the hands of potential customers who are getting ready to pay next month. That's the best thing you could have said in this call, and I think vertical solutions, and if there's some sort of a social media aspect to it that is coming downstream, all this is great. What I think you are talking about is not so much social media. This is going to be a two-sided marketplace where you pair up coaches and potential trainees, people who are looking for coaching. So this is going to be what we call in our business, what we call is a SaaS-enabled marketplace. That's what you're going to end up building. And we know how to build those things. We can definitely guide you on that, but that's the direction that you're going to have to morph this.
Right. So,
Okay.
so the SaaS-enabled marketplace sounds sounds so accurate in this context. But having this, the thought process I had was because I have multiple uh, vertical solutions, like one for coach, another for tournaments, another one for the sports authorities and the sports governance bodies, one for athlete themselves, and finally one for the fans and the family sectors. like for a grassroots level, like if your child is playing in your school tournament, like
I wouldn't spread yourself thin. Find one problem to solve that problem, and choose a problem that people are going to pay to solve, and start there. You cannot do so many things at once. You're not going to succeed as a business doing that, so many things. This is not cranking out a few free apps and putting them out there and 30,000 people using them. This is actually building something that people are going to pay for. Investors don't pay for free apps.
I totally understand. That's where, like, after doing my own steady and part-time work, I realized that this is one place where people would pay for the coaching aspect, because this is real business for those individuals.
Right.
Everything else,
the coaches are running these small businesses, and you can help them run these small businesses more efficiently, and that's a valuable thing.
That's a yeah.
And you know, there are, since you understand the coaching world, there are individual coaches, but there are also a lot of academies, sports academies, that do run like small businesses. And if you can bring that, I don't know, I haven't done the TAM analysis of that. You're going to need to do the bottom-up TAM analysis of that and understand what is the potential of that. So we can do all of that. If you decide that you want to work within the 1M1M program, we can definitely work with you on figuring these things out.
Yeah. And as part of the beta program, I did try the variety. I tried Academy, which has 2 or 3 coaches, and also the individual coaches who are just doing it as an independent coaching service as individuals. So both are being tried out in the beta. And I totally understand what you're talking about.
This is a field in which I have a lot of contacts. My dad was, he was Bengal state champion in table tennis in 1959.
Wow.
And then he left for England and did his career in shipping. And then when he came back to England, to India about 6 years later, he was a shipping entrepreneur, but his passion was table tennis as well. So he got really seriously involved in developing table tennis as a sport in India. So India's rise in table tennis has, to a very large extent, been influenced by my dad. So I know, I personally know many of the national champions and state champions and so on. Nice. So there's a friend of ours who's based in Chennai, Raman Srinivasan, who was a national champion, Olympian. He's running a very successful academy in Chennai in table tennis. So we know tons of academies and coaches in table tennis.
Awesome. Great. So, Shamla, do you think that this is one, like once we follow the SaaS marketplace model that you're talking about, it's something that it will turn into a business and then can raise funds and make it profitable?
I don't know yet. I have to work on it with you to figure out, mainly we have to figure out the TAM and the velocity, the repeatability and the velocity. I think those can be figured out. And if you would join the program, I can start working with you and guiding you on how to figure those things out. But you can definitely build a business, I think. Whether it's a fundable business or not, you can build a business. That I'm pretty sure you can.
Okay.
Great.
All
right. I will explain in a moment how Felix has left. I will explain to you how to use 1Mby1M, and I will take more questions in just a moment. I know Shunyan, who is a premium member of the program, is on the queue to ask questions. And I know there are lots of other people in the room. Any of you who want to talk to me today, if you could please let either Maureen know privately or just let us know in the public chat that you want to talk. Maureen will make you a panelist, and then I will call on you each one by one, and we can have conversations. So while you're doing all that administrative stuff, Maureen, let me explain to the audience how to use 1Mby1M. Remember, we're a virtual accelerator. So everything is at 1Mby1M.com and everything is online. You can join the premium program, which is where you get this regular mentoring, strategy consulting, whatever you call it, like we are doing here, this interactive coaching. We have investor introductions as part of the premium program. There's a curriculum that, just like Phani just said, he doesn't know what bottom-up TAM analysis means. Well, you can do the curriculum module and learn what bottom-up TAM analysis means, and that is the model that we're going to use to make some of these decisions on whether to go for funding and so on and so forth, and how to frame this business as an investment thesis. You know, an investor is going to look at your business and see, is there an investment thesis with which he or she can make money? That's what investors do. So we have to create that investor pitch so that they can make that decision easily. So that's that. And then I make connections all the time. You know, it's introductions to potential customers, channel partners, investors, of course. All of these are part of the program. All of that is in the premium program. Now, for those of you who just want to learn using the curriculum, we have a curriculum only version, which is 1M1M Basic. You're welcome to start there as well and then upgrade to premium when you feel like you want to do that. So go to the website, look at premium, basic, what to expect from each of those. We do have one-on-one consulting available, and that is something that we get requests for. It is more expensive, so you don't necessarily need to get one-on-one consulting, but if you're obsessed with confidentiality and stealth and all that, you can get one-on-one consulting. Upcoming free roundtables are June 26th and then 5 Thursdays in July. So if you haven't pitched ever at a free roundtable and you're looking for a slot, please go sign up and Maureen will schedule you for a pitch. If you have questions about the program after today, you can ask Irina Patterson on our team, irina@1mby1m.com. She can also get on the phone with you. So let me start taking questions, both from the audience as well as the other panelists. Shunyun, you are next, so please unmute and get on video and we can talk. Phani, you have a question. Does this program also give us access to generic accelerated tools like cloud credits, free CRM, etc.? No, we don't deal with any of that. You can get that very easily from other places. We don't. It's commodity, basically. We don't do commodity services. Shunyun?
Okay, yeah. Hello. Hi, Sharmana. All right, so is my voice all right?
Yes, I can hear you fine.
Yeah, all right. Good to see you. Yeah, apologies for the camera not working today. So, well, first off, thanks for the great interview that just happened. I happened to also in the virtual world when I was a researcher, so that was quite relevant. Thank you. And so for our update, basically, thanks for your last week's, actionable items, which is to contact suppliers of Canadian CPG.
So folks, just to set some context, Shunyun is in the premium program and he's investigating an organic marketplace in Canada of non-perishable products. And he's so I've been coaching him on how to put one foot before the other in this business, and then I've pointed him to case studies. So this is a marketplace in development. And Shunyun, you were talking to suppliers. And in a marketplace, by the way, suppliers is where you should go first. So go ahead.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So again, yeah, thanks for the context. So I kind of phrase it now kind of like the Alibaba B2B marketplace, but for organic goods, right? Organic CPG, consumer packaged goods, like the cereals, you buy, maybe some tea, right? So our progress was our goal was to reach out to the suppliers. So we did that. Okay, we have been, and as you suggested on LinkedIn, so we are reaching out. It takes time for LinkedIn response. So right now we're, getting some, just trying to connect and then reach out. And we did, and we're also at the stage of, trying to figure out what's the best message that can, like kind of engage them for onboarding to our platform or marketplace. So right now, I think the position of the message, and this is where I want maybe you can give us some feedback on, is that first we can help them to list their products, whether in the hundreds or even more, for free. Okay, so they get exposure for that. And then there's also the possibility of bulk buyers. because as mentioned before.
So hold on, the
Mm-hmm.
message for
Right.
marketplaces is that you're going to bring buyers and sellers together. And usually you go to the sellers first and get a critical mass of sellers who are looking for marketing on your platform so that you can then attract the buyers. Remember, we were talking about the producers of organic, non-perishable items, and you're talking about the retail buyers who run organic stores or want to carry organic merchandise at grocery stores and so on. And you need to bring those buyers onto the market, but you kind of need a critical mass of suppliers to be able to have those conversations with the retail buyers. Right?
Sorry, there are some internet issues. Yes, I'm here. Yes, get the suppliers. Correct.
Yeah, so you need to get a
Can you
critical
hear?
mass of suppliers that
Hello?
that creates. Yes, you're having difficulty with the audio, it seems. Shunyan, I suggest you pick up the feedback from the recording. Yes, I did say you. I'm not going to repeat the recording because it's going to bore everybody else. Do you have any other questions besides?
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically, I guess it's I want to ask if we should say we can offer potential bulk buyers in US and Asia
Potential
because
what?
of our existing relation. Bulk buyers.
Bulk buyers.
Bulk, you know, in volume.
No, you're going to get retailers.
For example, we know.
Of course, retailers buy wholesale. Of
Right.
course, yes. You're not. This is not. You're going to say you are going to put a marketplace together where merchants of organic, non-perishable products meet retail buyers who buy wholesale. It's a wholesale marketplace. It's not a retail marketplace. It's a wholesale marketplace. So that's the message.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Okay.
So I think that's I should update you what the responses are.
Sure.
Okay, next week.
Next
all right.
week. Sure,
So
absolutely.
That should be, all right.
Phani,
Thanks.
you're very
Appreciate
welcome.
it.
Phani has another question. To be effective, what are average hours per week we should spend on the premium program? It could be case by case depending on business, but please give guidance. Look, Phani, the more time you can spend learning the curriculum, the more equipped you're going to be a more, advanced entrepreneur. There's like a core curriculum. Let me just give you the structure of the program. There's core and then there is elective. For you, the core curriculum is a must because there are a lot of things that you don't know how to build a business on. So definitely, budget about 50 hours to do enough of the core curriculum. It doesn't have to be in 1 week. You can spread it out depending on how much time you have available. But there is a bunch of core curriculum material that you will need to get under your belt. And as people like Shunyan will tell you, it's incredibly effective to do these modules, and you will immediately be able to implement it in your business. So you do those. So the clip of it is you do curriculum modules, you do core, and then we do have a whole module of case studies on two-sided marketplaces, SaaS-enabled marketplaces, and all of that. So I want you to do some of those case studies to learn the nuances of how to build those kinds of businesses. So that studying, that curriculum studying will have to kind of progress in parallel. And then the roundtables where you come and meet with me are usually Wednesday morning Pacific time, 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. And that's just once a week. So I would encourage you. People don't come every week, they come as needed. But the more you come, the more you'll be able to iterate with me and get guidance. So that's kind of like the framework of how we operate. It's curriculum, it's roundtables, and it's your own studying and then coming and getting feedback and coaching at the roundtables. That's how the program is set up. And it is working. It's been in the market for a long time now. We started in 2010, so it works really well.
That's great. Thanks. Is it okay if I unmute and just ask a few more questions?
Of course, absolutely.
Okay. Right. So these Wednesday roundtables, like how many participants do you normally have
It
in each
varies.
round?
It varies.
Yeah.
But you will never
But we
have
always get a
difficulty.
slot.
So far, nobody has had difficulty getting some time. If you need time to ask questions, there will be no problem getting that time.
Okay. So, and I can join this program anytime, right? Because I'm currently in the middle of moving countries. So,
You can join anytime. There's no country restriction, nothing. It's a global accelerator.
so not country restriction, but the time, like, you always
Time.
start in June, July,
If you
or
don't have time,
August.
if you don't have time to work on it, then there's no point, right?
No, my question is, do you always start these programs in specific months like June, July,
No,
or can I
no, no,
join
no,
in
no, no,
August,
no.
September?
It's completely rolling. You start when you want to work on it.
Okay.
The clock
Okay.
starts
Okay.
ticking from when you join you have a 1 year you're basically buying a 1 year membership, and then people stay, multiple years. We've had people stay 3 years in the program, but you have to renew your membership to stay in the program beyond 1 year.
Okay. Got it. Understood. And is this
Completely
the only
flexible.
time? Because I'm moving to Australia, and then 8 a.m. PDT is like past midnight. So is this the only time slot for roundtables?
That is usually the only slot for night roundtables. We've had people from Australia and Singapore and so on. So we have, to accommodate that, once a month, we have sometimes offered programs on a Monday evening, which is in Australia, it's going to be morning. So you should, once you join the program, you can request it. We can't do it every week. We can offer that once a month. So you would, if you're unable to take advantage of the Wednesday morning sessions, that you will get once a month of opportunities to join the roundtables. We will be able to accommodate your requirements.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
Why are you
Thanks,
moving to
Ramana. That's it.
Australia?
Well, it, I don't know. It wasn't. It's never planned, but so far it's happening for last 15 years that I've been moving countries every 3, 4 years. It's just the opportunities are turning up in that way, and currently I'm moving because my daughter want to pursue art, and there's a very good art school in Melbourne, so thinking about moving there.
Because as an entrepreneur, your cost structure will go up, and that's not desirable.
Yeah. Of course, because I know you also recommend, I heard your previous sessions as well, that do your day job and then run this in parallel until it becomes profitable and then make a switch. So that's what I would do. I'll
You can
find
do
it.
that. You can do that.
Yeah.
You can do that, but then you'll have to figure out a way to work with 1 million by 1 million your nights and weekends. The curriculum is available at your own time. That's not a problem. But then you're looking for Pacific time morning slots and not evening slots, which is going to be Australia morning time when you're going to be going to work. So anyway, we can figure that out.
Yeah. That's true. That's
But bootstrapping with a paycheck, yes, we recommend bootstrapping with a paycheck, especially, you're going to need money to pay the bills, especially if you now move to Australia to put your child through school and all that, you're going to need to pay the bills. So definitely bootstrapping with a paycheck is a very good way to bootstrap.
Got it.
Okay.
Unless we get some funding where I can manage it out.
Yeah, don't expect funding immediately. That's not going to happen anytime soon. You're going to have to do a lot of work before funding is going to be viable.
Understood.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Ramana.
You're very welcome, Phani. Anybody else? Questions, comments? I see some premium members here as well. And if anybody has questions about the program, you're welcome to ask. If not, I'm going to adjourn the session. I don't see any hands up, so it looks like you've got what you came here for, and I hope to see you next time. or in the premium program. Bye, everybody. Thank you for coming.
Okay. Thanks, Sarmana. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
See you next week.
Oh, Megha Apte does have a question. Maureen, could you put Megha in the panel as a panelist so she can ask questions? Megha, you can unmute the line and ask your question.
Hi, this was quite an insightful session that I had. A quick question about membership. Is there a way that we can do a payment plan or something for the $1,000?
No, there isn't. You can
No.
do the premium, you can do the basic program, curriculum only. That's $99 a month.
Right. Okay, fair enough. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Anybody else? Folks, last call. I'm going to adjourn the session. Megha, do you have another question? I see your hand up still.
No, I think that's my
You're
mistake.
good. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Okay, folks, that's it then for today. I will see you next time. Bye.